Like, we're seeking purpose from the people around us, and that's just like more than they can do for us.
When am I gonna find my passion? When am I gonna find my purpose? Like, will it come?
Like, nothing can take away that purpose or my identity as a son, no matter what, like no matter how bad I mess up. My name is Noah Rescate.
Olivia Hummelgarn.
Hannah Cunningham. And
Gretchen Behrens, and I am an SPA missionary. I would really love to know, did you guys think purpose of life was when you were growing up and before you like ever encountered Christ or a Christian worldview? And yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts.
It's cool. I guess I can kick us off. I grew up with a non-denominational background, so I kind of knew the Lord growing up, but really before I met the Lord personally, it was kind of just like all these like different life points of like get a good job, get married, have a family, do the typical thing, but there wasn't really like a clear direction on how to do it, and then you kind of like take a whole bunch of detours when you hit college and do all the typical things, but it's just like those seem like way far off things that I'll probably end up like pursuing one day, but it just like wasn't a part of my life at the current moment. It was just kind of like doing the college thing, so that's how it was for me.
Yeah, so just like more present, like just kind of living
and
hoping something will come up.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's different now, like with I still kind of have that same, but definitely like more centered on Christ versus just myself, but yeah.
Do you think it was like you're like working toward these things, or you're just kind of expecting that to happen to you?
I don't know, for me it was just like, yeah, the job will come, the wife will come one day, but just like having fun right now and like seeing, because I mean, I encountered the Lord my sophomore year going in my junior year, so like at that time perspective, it was just like freshman year, like I'm still a young buck, like just like, I don't know, living life. But what about you guys?
Yeah, I think for me, like definitely as a kid, like just didn't think too much about the future, just, you know, similar, just like living in the present. I think whenever I did get to the age where I was just like, okay, like, yeah, like I need to start planning or like thinking about like what is my life gonna look like. I think my first thought was just like fear. Like I don't know what I want. I don't know what my passion is. And I think I really connected passion with purpose, or it was like I need to figure out what my passion is, and then I'll find my purpose. And for me, that was like a career or an interest, or like that's kind of what I thought passion was. And like not being too much of a dreamer, I just kind of felt like, oh shoot, I don't have one, I need to find one. So I was kind of just left like, oh no, like is this okay? Like when am I gonna find my passion? When am I gonna find my purpose? Like will it come? Will it not come? So yeah, I think it just wasn't too hopeful. I was just kind of like a little bit anxious about it, like I gotta figure this out on my own type of thing.
Whoa, yeah.
I kind of relate to that actually, and I don't know if I would have known to put those words to it, but maybe the way that I kind of like reconciled that, like I don't know what I'm passionate about, it was like either kind of like telling myself I was passionate about certain things and saying like this is the path I'm taking, but more so I think I approached it as like, I guess the purpose of my life is to just like do the best that I can. It's like to be the best that I can in all things. And I think that played out like in like middle school, high school, when it came to academics and athletics and like relationships even. It was just, you know, if you're being the best person you can be in all of these areas, like what more can you do? But it was kind of this like, I don't know if I would have articulated that is my purpose, but that is certainly the approach that I took, even going into college. Like, well, whatever it is, I'm just gonna like do the best that I can.
Was it mainly a lot of like the sports and the school, or were like even like friendships, or like being a family member, like with your family, was that a part of it too, of like you want to be the best? That was
I think so. And like obviously it looks different. It wasn't that I wanted to like have the most friends or anything like that. But it was just like I want to be nice, and I want to be well liked. I want that was it. Like I want to be well liked.
Got it. That's really well.
Yeah, almost like my purpose is dependent on how others view me. Like if
Totally.
others see me as successful or like
Mhm.
nice, then I'm doing good.
100%.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think similarly, I was like reflecting, and I really think it was I just wanted to be a good person, and that just manifested itself in like ability. Like I just like was such a people pleaser in like a very debilitating way of like if I just remember like being like, yeah, if I like don't have really strong opinions, then no one can be mad at me, and everyone's gonna like me, and that's what I need to do. I just need to be liked. And that's just like so chaining, it's just like so debilitating. There's no freedom there. And yeah, I just remember like very distinct moments of like high school, early college, of just being like, I just need to be liked. And if people don't like me, then everything's out the window and it's all over, which is crazy. It's so fickle because people's emotions are so fickle.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're like seeking that. We're seeking approval from other people. But I think like deeper, we're seeking something more. Like we're seeking purpose from the people around us, and that's just like more than they can do for us.
Yeah.
And so it's just unfair even to ourselves and to our relationships, and kind of sets us up for disappointment in some ways. But yeah, that's real.
How has meeting Christ flipped that on its head for you guys?
Well, okay, I'll just start talking. We'll see. But I mean, I think, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like flipped it on its head. Like obviously, just very different now. But I would say, yeah, kind of going back to thinking, finding my purpose was on me, and just the fear of what if I don't find it? What if I, choose the wrong purpose, choose the wrong passion? I think just slowly as I came into a relationship with Jesus, it was this. Like it doesn't matter almost, not that my life doesn't matter, but more so like my life matters so much that it's like just about me living, it's just about me loving, that it's not so much about what I'm doing. And I think to like simply, it just came down to like my purpose is to be loved by the Lord and to love others. And yeah, I definitely didn't have like a one moment time where it was like, all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, now I know. But just as like the walls of my heart just, began to break down and lies were cast out that I didn't have to do it on my own, that's kind of where that came in to just like, it is just about, being loved and loving. But yeah.
Yeah, honestly, for me, it was a really similar thing of kind of like taking a step back from like what I was like saying earlier. I think the best way to sum it up was like, to be honest, like I really kind of idolized like the relationship and kind of like being happily married and like dying happily ever after and all that kind of stuff. So a similar thing, there was like a deep innate desire to love and to be loved, but it was like in the wrong context, in the wrong order. So, same thing like when I met Christ, it was like, like my purpose is simply to love God and others and to be loved by God and others. And same like passions, and interests will like come and go, but I started like approaching life of like, again, how can I give of myself in like whatever area of life? Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, actually, I'm remembering this one like prayer time that I had. It was actually during COVID, so it was just like in my room by myself. But I was listening to a podcast, and it was like, who's on the throne of your heart? Like picture, like imagine, try to imagine like what's there. And I remember I was just like trying so hard. I'm like, what's there? Like it's got to be something. Like it's probably not Jesus, because like I'm not content, or like what's there? And all that came to me was like nothing. Like it was like this room, and I think it was like music was playing. It was like there's distraction. There's like you're distracting yourself. You're trying to find something, and it's just distraction. So I think I never got to a point of like where I idolized like maybe one specific thing or put my purpose in like one sport or like one relationship or friendship. It was just like I'm afraid to like really look for it, so I'm just going to distract myself with like little things and like kind of hide in fear almost. So that is one moment where I kind of like acknowledged that and was like, whoa, like, Jesus, I want you to be there, but like, I don't know how to put you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so interesting. That's like a good awareness that there was some kind of like fear of letting Jesus take that place. It wasn't that there was one thing. I think often we find ourselves with one thing there.
Yeah.
But that's so interesting.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, Noah, like passions come and go. Like
Yeah.
I really love that you were pointing that out. Like
Totally.
maybe even I'm not to put words to your experience, but that even in those like passions that come and go, it's like there's like a fear to put anything there because it's unchanging, right? That it's like not going to stay there.
Yeah. Like, what if I pick the wrong one?
Yeah.
Kind of thing? Like,
Yeah.
oh shoot.
It's like I'm just not going to.
Yeah.
But in that, like, we don't pick the one thing that is actually unchanging. That's the Lord.
Yeah, I feel like that's like so present in our culture too of apathy. Like I just encounter so many students on campus that it's not this like resistance to like faith or Jesus. It's just like I don't care. Like I don't want to care. I'm like so beat down by the culture that I just don't want to, like I don't want to pick anything. I'm just going to go with the flow. Like I feel like kind of a little bit what you were explaining earlier of like, it's going to come, it's going to happen, it'll get there, but I don't really, I don't want to put anything up there because it's so unchanging. Yeah.
And it's risky.
Yeah.
Like it's risky to put something there because like what if it breaks down at some point, right? Like at least if I don't have like my hope in this one thing, then I can't be disappointed.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's risky.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of along the same lines, but particularly like when we were in college, like with our majors, were we set on one major the whole way through, or did any of us switch around?
I had a moment my senior year of college where it was first semester senior year of college, and I went to a missionary at the time, Rachel Holmes, shout out, and I literally was like, Rachel, I'm changing my major, and she was like, well, you can't do that. And I was just like, no, I'm done. I put 4 years into this thing, and it's not gonna work out, and there's no job I want in this field anymore, and I'm just done. And she was like, okay, like it's gonna be okay. And yeah, she just like really spoke some truth of like, well, okay, but like what have you invested your time in college? And as a good missionary, and then led me to apply to be a missionary, but in a good way because that was where the Lord was leading. But yeah, it was like I remember just having like an existential crisis of being like, I put so much money into this degree that I'm not going to use, that I've like almost put my identity in, because it's like I am this major, I did study this thing, and like to see it just like be like crumbling, it's like hard to realize that.
But then something changed.
And then something changed, and then I realized that the Lord is just, I remember being like, all right, Lord, like I am in this major, I don't want to go into this job. Where have you like actually worked in my life in other ways? And I think pointing, what you were speaking about of like my passions are directing my purpose, but actually a rightly ordered way is my purpose is where my passions are directed. And so it's like if my purpose is to proclaim you as Lord and to live my life the way that you have willed my life to be lived, then what of my passions are directing that direction? What have you worked in? What places are you like working in that have directed myself towards that purpose of your will? And I just realized, I remember like kind of talking through it with Rachel at the time of being like, actually, Lord, like you've worked in so many other areas that are outside of my major or outside of academics that have actually led me to like, actually I wanna give my life in a particular way to mission. Like this is like the way the Lord had been working. And I think it is just like an interesting way of like, where our passions, like understanding our passions as a place to direct towards our purpose instead of the way that are directing our purpose.
That's powerful. I was like reflecting on this a little bit too, like how, I don't know, similarly, I don't know if there was like one moment when it like all changed for me. As I've come to know Christ and know who he is in my life, and he's like taken that place on the throne, despite my efforts to remove him from that throne. I'm imperfect. But like, I was just reminded of the very first line of the catechism, and I don't have it memorized, but it just like talks about how God, like perfect and infinitely blessed in himself in a plan of sheer goodness, created man to share in his divine life. And like, that's my purpose, is to share in God's divine life. That's why he made me. And it actually like shifts anything from like what I do. Like my purpose is not in what I do, but it's in who I am and like how I'm called to share in his divine life. And like you're saying, like to follow God's will for our lives, that enables me to live more fully in his divine life. That allows me to share in his divine life. It's not that like I just need to do these things because God is God and he's like telling me what to do. But it's like in this plan of goodness for me and like this purpose that he's had for me since the beginning of time. This purpose to like simply just like share in life with him. Yeah.
How does that play out in your guys' current life now? Kind of a couple years into mission. There's like this like step past the initial putting Jesus on the throne, and maybe it's in the keeping him on the throne part, but yeah, how does that like play out in your day-to-day life to remember that our purpose is to share in the divine life?
I mean, I think with like 1 year of mission down, it's like, it's just so easy, right? If the purpose is to like love and be loved, it's just like, I mean, it's hard at times, but it's like, but it's just like, it's hard, but also it's just like being a missionary. It's, I guess in a way, it almost kind of like shuts out a lot of the outside noise, right? And you're just like put in a particular like state of life where, again, your job is just to simply love the students that the Lord has like put in front of you. And I think when that plays into the day-to-day, right, and like a lot of the practicalities of just like service, and like, you know, being out on mission and in campus. But one thing that I've been praying a lot through this year is just like abiding in the Lord's presence and like knowing that like every single moment he's there with me. And just like something like, how do I respond to that moment? Or like, especially like when mission gets tough or in times of desolation. I guess even another way of like rewording my purpose is just like, I'm called to be a son, right? And one thing I was thinking about is just like, yeah, like we're imperfect, we're human, and we're gonna mess up at times, but it's like what a gift it is from God that nothing can take away that purpose or my identity as a son, no matter what, like no matter how bad I mess up. So it's just like in the moment, like, yes, there's a bit of coming back to the Lord, but it's like realizing that he was there the whole time. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that kind of answers the question, but that was just one thing that I was thinking about. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that. And yeah, just the stability of your purpose, kind of like what you're saying, like anything we put on the throne of our hearts, like it's not stable unless it's the Lord. And just for me, just the peace and contentment that I can have with that, like it literally, I can't mess this up because I didn't choose this, like the Lord chose this for me. And thank God, because if it was up to me, I'd probably mess it up. I would mess it up. And yeah, just the freedom that comes with that of like just in receiving the Lord's love, like that will lead me straight to him. And like my purpose will unfold, like his will in my life will unfold. And I can live in hope that this is true. And I don't have to worry about the details, worry about what the next 3 years is going to look like, if my purpose is, going to be fulfilled in the next 3 years, or if it's going to be failed. It's like, if I'm remaining in the Lord, like you said, like my purpose will be fulfilled. And just the hope that comes with that. I think that's the main like word that comes to me is like Jesus is our living hope, and because he gives us our purpose.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And I know we don't have like too much time left, but maybe just like one person to kind of answer, like kind of with wrapping it up too. Like I feel like we've been talking like Jesus is fulfilling, like Jesus is the purpose, but like it's just the reality that a lot of people we encounter, and similar like in our lives too. Like there's students who are just like, but yeah, I'm just like so caught up in everything else. So I just like, what would be your response to that? It's just like, is Jesus truly trustworthy, and like how? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Yeah, like how can I proclaim that Jesus is Lord? And I remember, as we're talking, I was recalling this really distinct memory of my first year in New Jersey on mission. And I was talking to a woman, one of my roommates, and we were just talking about something really hard and like the potential of something really hard. And she just with such confidence but also so nonchalantly, just as like, yeah, but Jesus is Lord, and that's all that matters. And it was just like this. I was like, I don't think I could say that in like the way that you have said that. And I think, just to speak on like, okay, we encounter students who like don't know who Jesus is, like, is he trustworthy? And I think we have an ability to just testify that Jesus is trustworthy, you know, like that he, in the way that we live our life, in like that our life proclaims that Jesus is Lord, that Jesus is trustworthy, that Jesus is stable, that our only purpose cannot be failed because it's to be his children, is, I think that is just like such a great witness to our campuses and to our students, you know, like to testify in the ways that like, I know that Jesus is trustworthy because Jesus trusts me. Like, I trust Jesus, and let me show you how. And like, will you walk beside me in that, you know?
Yeah.
I think like you can't know if someone's trustworthy unless you put your trust in them.
Yeah,
You
no,
gotta,
that's,
like,
that's so true.
You
Yeah.
have to, so I would say like
Right.
test it. Like,
Yeah.
try it. You know, God wants us to step out and just like see what he can do.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and yes, absolutely, power of testimony and witness,
Yeah.
encouragement side by side, 100%.
That's good.
Maybe to like bring it more down to just like a practical level. Like, how would you guys say like you proclaim this purpose like each day, like day?
Something that comes to mind for me is like living a life of worship, and I'll get more specific in that, but it's like starting my day out in prayer, and it's an offering of my life to the Lord. Like, he invites me to share in his divine life, and when I'm like following his will for me, and when I'm like becoming the person he's called me to be, becoming more like Jesus, I get to share more intimately in that divine life. And so like stepping out in trust. So maybe it's like, oh, I see that person on campus and I like feel like I should talk to them, but I'm like scared, and you just do it. Like, you step out in faith and you do it. And it's like, I'm like having a hard time with my roommate, but I know that the right thing is like have a conversation, and you don't want to do it, but you just like, you step out. You know what I mean? Like, it's like in the little things, prayer, like living life, charity toward others, and I don't know. Those are like some of the small things that I would.
Yeah, I think also something that I do often is I just love to remember, like in particular moments where I'm just like, Lord, this is not going well. Like, that student rejected me for the 14th time, and my roommates are still difficult to be with, but I just love, we're called to be people who remember, and remember the Lord's faithfulness and his trustworthiness. And I love in the Jewish tradition, this might be wrong because I could be wrong, but this might not be completely accurate, but when they celebrate the Passover meal, it's a current remembrance. So they are back in the Passover, and it's this idea that the Lord continues to deliver his people. And it's just like, we're called to that same remembrance, that the Lord who has delivered us, who has proven his trustworthiness, we are called to still remain in that same remembrance. And and like on a practical level, I think like every month I look back at my journal and just see the way that the Lord has answered prayers, because we are so fickle and so human, and we are we are goldfish in a little thing. I would say a tub, a little tank with a 3-second memory. It's so true. How quick are we to forget the Lord's faithfulness to us, that he will provide for us, and that he has proven us his purpose for us, and that is to share in his divine life and to be called his sons and daughters.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'll just say very briefly, co-signing everything that both of you guys said, but also again with just like living a life of worship, especially when we encounter others, is that like we're encountering a reflection of Christ in everybody that we meet, in our roommates, students on campus, whoever it may be. And like in Revelations, like when the angels and saints encounter the face of the Lord, like they cast down their crowns and they're just like in complete joy and worship. And I think that's been a big thing of like, especially when it gets tough, of like, I don't know if I want to go up to that soon, but just like, no, like encountering them with joy, and of like laying down my pride and my crown before them and just like, dude, I freaking love you, man. I don't say it that way. That'll be kind of weird, but like, you know what I mean? Nice to meet you. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and just like a thought of with reflection, like how do we do that? I'm like, I have to pause, like you were saying, like I have to pause when I'm about to go into a conversation and think like, yeah, what is the Lord prompting me to do? I have to go to prayer, and that's when I can actually have the space to look back in my journal or like let the Lord prompt a memory of like, whoa, this is when you pulled through and you did provide. And yeah, just like creating that space to allow the Lord to continue to show himself.
That's awesome. Yeah. So like, moral of the story, just like send it.
Just do it.
Yeah. It's like trust in the Lord. Like, what do you have to lose when you have everything to gain? So, amen. Jesus is Lord. Give him a shot.
keeps us in between.